Let's begin our deep dive into psychology and the structure of the psyche based on DNA. Introduction. The model contained within is based on a temporal dynamic, linear and cyclic, yet somewhat transient, a hierarchy of consciousness and a correlative spectral design, including comparable elements to the id, ego, and superego. These are identity, person, and form, which coincide with the familiar elements of body, mind, and soul, further represented by a system related to cognitive thought processes, this 15 parts in length and structure. Basic explanation. Though complex at first glimpse, this model of the psyche is a simplistic representation of three major factors: genetic coding, lifetime depletion, and biochemical expenditure, these all part and parcel with the ebb and flow of life on planet Earth, one governed by time and gravitational forces. Divided into three main periods, these are subdivided into three sub-periods, which correspond directly with established stages of embryonic, adolescent, and adult maturation. Each period is then composed of 15 states, stages, and forms, a manifest reflection of the three facets mentioned above. Elucidation of theorization. The theoretical basis of this model is the idea of evolution, and that the body, mind, and soul are given to developmental adaptation. Theories related to evolution do not specifically apply here, save for that we are formed of a genetic code, which in turn produces a manifestation relative to the contributing gametes and is congruent to and influenced by the environment in which previous adaptation has taken place. This antecedent activity is given to the production of mechanisms that allow differentiated usage of capability during a lifetime, those same that are then proscribed in genetic heredity of offspring. With this in mind, it seems clear that the mind should portray elements of this adaptive function in its representation of the somatic neural systems, and that we are, in fact, coded to act according to the evolution of our comprehensive physiological structure. In short, we are a product of the environment through and by which we are created, and as such are structured and ordered in our cognitive functions in a manner of temporal adherence that restricts ineffectual activity through resultant consequence and the inevitable outcome of the psychodynamic in actuarial conduct. My apologies for the interruption there a moment ago. I'm sure you heard some ringing in the background. I had to attend to something, but we are back with logic of the system. Logic is part of the mental faculty, and here it is applied to create a means to manage access. My apologies once again. Is applied to create a means to manage and access behavioral influence whilst preserving an autonomy in the individuality of all human beings. This model and the measures and systems based thereupon provides a cyclic and concentric modality that enables a passive intervention strategy. Through documents, interviews, and reports that are structured according to a 15-part system in a model congruent manner, the subject is able to organize their own patterns of thought, behavior, and emotional expression following the correlative dynamic, one that considers all elements of the basic psyche. Simply, a model is formed that allows for an advanced understanding of human psychology while providing for variance as a representation of individuality. It also allows for time-sensitive assessments to impact and inform wisdom for the ongoing development of insight and the promotion of enlightened contemplation. Creation of a temporal dynamic. Modalities of this nature often fail approbation due to their lack of actual applicability, particularly when it comes to correlation of time. This will be further discussed in Chapter 4, but what is relevant here is the representation of a temporal dynamic. through coincidental convergence and the actuation of a shared reality, or actuality, we align our interpretation of experience with that of a collective, at least in the sense of realistic or reasonable transduction of factual and semantic elements. We can then rely on a time-based relativity to ensure our perspective is both coherent and cohesive. The structure of the psyche is represented this way. We first realize, then actuate, think, then act, sense, then perceive. It stands to reason that our minds follow some sort of temporal pathway that ensures we remain congruent with our surroundings. Representing the psyche with this element firmly entrenched means a correlative manifestation and traceable patterns of disorder and injury. Reason for the system. This gives rise to the reason for the system. We need a structure upon which we can reasonably rely to provide a foundation for the analysis of human cognition and that which is manifest of our thoughts. Given much consideration and having heard much criticism, the model provides that basis, being a construct of time and space that synthesizes a formation of temporal relativity within and as part of the psychological dynamic. Following cyclic patterns of expansion and reformation reconstitution, the 15 stages, states, and forms translate into an increasingly simplified three-period classification of human development and the psyche that is produced as a resultant consequence of temporal adherence. Theoretical implications. Implications of this theory need to be considered as part of this work. Ethical dilemmas are presented with every kind of model, including how it was developed, what it is intended for, and how can it be misused. To put it in no uncertain terms, if it does work or is relatively correct, one cannot do anything to countermine the beneficial effects. This may seem grandiose in claim, but the model has been developed using only observation and research, none of which has entailed any kind of violation. The model is intended to be the basis of constructive psychiatric assessment and evaluation, and to prevent the misuse of pharmaco-psychological intervention, while supporting the use thereof through validated evidence. Lastly, it can be misused only in that a person might lie about the observed responses to testing or reports, or use a predicted behavior to influence conduct to that end, but this is a flaw shared by all human creation. One specific area that could be of concern is the use of a temporal dynamic-based program to force or elicit behavior into an expected mold or form. But the power of the model in its purest form is that it helps naturally structure individuality, not conformity, as the idea itself would be rejected as mistruth. This is due to the fact that the model aligns with natural conduct and is not meant to promote or develop abnormal tendencies. With a hope and a prayer, may this be the case. Summation of the modality. The modality works as such. 15 parts, 7 stages, 3 states, and 1 form, as well as comparison and contrastation, explained later, are repeated 3 times in life, each at a variable length of time, moving respectively from 3 years to 36 years, to 108 years in approximation as an ideal. These 3 periods can be subdivided into 3 subperiods. The exact model can be found in Chapter 7, and what is presented here is a vast simplification. Complexity aside, what is found herein is the temporal dynamic of the is the temporal dynamic of the human mind, a thesis and treatise pertaining to the physiological representation of the individual psyche.